morning, everyone. Welcome to Street Talk Radio Show with your host, Natasha, Nicole, and my beautiful co-host, Jennifer, Gigi, Congresswoman Ferguson.
Good morning, everyone.
Yes. Good morning. Happy to be back in the studio this week. We got an interesting topic. Jennifer, Gigi, and I, we feel very strong about this topic. Gigi, you want to go ahead and bring the topic in this morning?
Well, we're going to be talking about pro-life and pro-choice.
Yes.
And we're going to start out talking, I think, just about it the normal way.
There you go.
But I've switched it around a little bit, you know.
Yeah, so the question of the day is, are you really pro-life? That is going to be the question of the day. We hope this show will make you expand your thought processes and soften your hearts a little bit and really think, which side of the fence are you on? Jennifer, would you agree?
I definitely agree. And especially with what's going on now in this society and, everything that's going on. Yes.
Yes, especially with these children that have been taken away from their parents.
Yes.
It's a whole rigmarole, uproar of feelings in the studio this morning. But Jennifer, why don't you go ahead and break down or start the conversation, just the basic pro-life, pro-choice?
Well, the pro-life, pro-choice that people talk about is pro-life is you have the baby no matter what, because if you abort the baby, it's murder. And I've been out and I've heard people, when I say I'm pro-choice, say murderer. And then I'll ask them straight up, yeah, you're right. That's murder. Have you ever stolen, like, a pen or anything, even if it's tiny? And, of course, they're going to say yes. And I said, then you're a thief. And
okay.
Have you ever told a lie? And even if it's a tiny one, yes, okay, then you're a liar.
Right.
And so, but the Bible says that there is no sin greater or less than another except blaspheme of the Holy Spirit.
Come on now, right. So as long as we repent.
But under grace. So
correct.
Who are you to condemn someone because they've chosen to have an abortion?
When that's the one thing we were all given is choice.
That's one of the first things in Genesis. God wanted us to choose.
Right.
To be able to make the choice between what he says is good or evil or right or wrong or whatever. Choose him versus not to choose him. But he wanted us to have that choice to freely do it.
Correct. Now, Jennifer, before we go any further, I want our listeners to understand and just stay with us for a moment, because I'm sure we have some listeners out there when we talk about being pro-choice, really cringing and maybe a little bit upset about that. But I want y'all to stay with us and see where this conversation is going to go today, because like I said earlier, we really want you to question what you are by the end of this program today.
Yes, because I'm going to tell you, I've been given something totally different that has made some people stand in front of me and drop some tears. So,
yes,
please allow yourself to go through this.
Yes.
And so, that is the norm of pro-life.
Correct.
And, the norm of pro-choice, is you have the right to have an abortion or not to have an abortion. And one of the things that the big thing is it's murder. And then there's others that say, well, I don't want to pay for their abortion.
Right.
And so I started thinking, and I'm like, okay, you don't want to pay for their abortion, but if that baby becomes abused and is taken out of the home, you're going to pay a whole lot more.
Right. Tax dollars are still going to be used if DHS has to step in and remove the child from the home. Correct.
Yes, and a whole lot more money.
Correct.
So that, that is the normal pro-life and pro-choice. So I started thinking, and this is what I got, and this is what I've been telling people, pro-life. When people ask me as I'm campaigning, are you pro-life? And I started saying I'm pro-life, but I'm not pro-life the way I think you're pro-life.
Right. It's completely different the way that I feel about it, you feel about it, some others that we know feel about it, versus what we see being protested, campaigned throughout the nation, especially in front of Planned Parenthood.
That's right. And what I see as pro-life is a baby is born, and you make sure that baby has food, clothing, and shelter. That baby has medical. That baby...
A fair right to an equal education.
That's right. Equal education, equal opportunity.
Correct.
In life.
Correct.
That baby is not growing up in a home where there's domestic violence.
Where it is not loved.
Definitely not loved.
Correct.
And possibly the reason is the baby's not loved is the baby came out of molestation.
Happens
rape.
a lot. Happens a lot.
What was that one?
I said it happens a lot.
Yes, it does. People have ladies bring in their boyfriends or, grandma's boyfriend or mama's boyfriend or somebody, and even sometimes the child's own parent will molest that child. And that is trauma to that child. But the child, because of family beliefs, still has to carry that baby. Or the adult still has to carry that baby.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they're now trying to do the law so that they have to have the abortion real early. And it makes no sense. So for me, that's like pro-life is giving them an opportunity to have a real life and to be able to thrive and not just live. And so
right.
Then I turn around and I say, but then there's pro-birth.
Right. Which is, to me, if you were pro-birth, how we're breaking this down this morning, all you care about is that baby being born.
That's right.
You don't care what happened to the mother. You don't care what happens. And our concern is what happens to the child after they enter the earth.
That's right.
That's what we are talking about this morning. That's what we are breaking it down. What is pro-life to you? Because people need to think about this morning.
Yes, they do.
If you don't care that the mother was on drugs the entire time and now she is bringing into the world this drug-addicted baby that 9 times out of 10, our tax dollars, are going to do some type of medical help, mental help, some type of help for this child because of the situation that they are in with the mother.
And it's going to be a lot of money because I've worked with the babies and I've worked with the mothers.
You have that experience firsthand.
Yes, it's going to be... I've worked with, I had a contract with DSHS, and so I've worked with these kids who are born drug-impacted or alcohol, fetal alcohol syndrome, or the other one is fetal alcohol. I can't think of the other one. I'm half asleep this morning. Sorry, everyone. But... and, the ones where the mothers were raped or molested or any of those things, and then they end up in the state's hands. The babies end up in the state's hands. And as I've done the counseling with the kids, they don't feel as though they're loved. They sometimes, or... they are truly a handful.
Right. And well, not only that, Gigi, what about when they are now in state's custody? They didn't feel loved before, and now they're getting no love.
That's for the most part. There are some foster care homes that,
I would agree.
do
Not
love them.
right.
However, the majority of the foster care homes, or a lot of the foster care homes, they're doing it for money.
Correct.
I know a man that had a big farm way out south, here in Washington. He had foster kids to help him run his farm.
Right.
That was their job, and I don't understand. They had kids sleeping on the floor, on mattresses. He had so many that they had like 4 to 6 boys in a room, and there were mattresses on the floor, and I've never forgotten that view, because I'm thinking, how in the world is this acceptable? And then when I started working with families, and they're having a fit if a sister and a brother in separate beds are in the same room.
Right. You can get your kids taken for that. At least back in the day you could. I know now with all the cuts with Section 8 and housing and things like that, now they are letting opposite sex children be in the same room at a certain age point. But back in the day, you were absolutely correct. It was not like that.
And so they're not thinking, when they're trying to push on to a woman to have this baby, because they don't know the finances, or if this person really wants to be a parent, if they know that they're not capable. And then you get those that say, well, then put it up for adoption.
But see, my thing with that is, to put it up for adoption, the United States leads in how many kids that are in the foster care system that have not been adopted, that are still wards to the state. With that being said, if we had all these people who say they are really, truly pro-life.
Come on.
You know what I'm saying? You know where I'm going with this.
Yes,
if
I do.
Everyone that said they are truly, really pro-life, then why do we have all these issues in our nation with all the kids that are not being adopted today?
Because all they want that baby to do is come into this world. And as far as
we know that, but we need to make sure that everybody else can really understand where we're going with this show this morning and why we have this compassion on our heart this morning. Because we both agree that abortion is murder. We agree. We both agree to that.
Yes.
Right. You know what I'm saying? But on the flip side, you can't just take one part of the pie. You can't just take one piece of it.
Yes.
And not look at the whole circle.
Yes.
You can't do it. So before that we condemn these women and pass judgment on them, you need to ask yourself, if she has this baby and everything goes wrong in her life and everything's messed up in her life, are you willing to step up?
Come on.
Because maybe that's what we need to start doing as a nation. Before we start voicing our opinions on everything, let's come with the fact of the matter and ask ourselves, when are we going to start stepping up?
And for many, many years, minorities, and I'm not just saying blacks, I mean minorities across the board, the families have stepped in and taken the baby or the children before the state could step in.
Correct. I've seen that happen in my family a couple times, where aunts and uncles have stepped in and talked to the parents and took children. Basically, literally, just took children.
Yes. Just took the children. They didn't try to ask anyone for money. They just took the child and raised the child as their own.
Because we're not going to continue.
Grandparents,
right.
Cousins, whomever.
Right. Because we're not going to continue to watch what these children are going through.
Yes. Yes. But
that's what pro-life is all about, though.
Yes, but we don't see that today. Or we see the family jump in, and once the family jumps in, a lot of times they want money. Now that they want money, now those kids are now in state custody.
Right.
even though the family jumped in and took the kids to keep them out of the system because they asked for money. Now they're part of the system.
Right.
So what life are they really getting? I remember as a chemical dependency counselor, I had a boy, a teenager, in there on marijuana, and he was taken from his mom. And I don't remember what it was, but it was really, really minor. And they told him, you listen to your foster parents. Your foster parents are going to tell you the right thing to do, and you do what they tell them to do. Well, they told him to smoke weed.
Wow.
His mom didn't drink. Or if she did, she told him they better not. There wasn't drugs in the house. I know it wasn't drugs in the house. He said so. They told him it was okay, and that was the best thing to do, and that the way their mom was living was wrong. And so he started smoking weed, and he had a serious attitude, which he deserved, because he said, my life was much better with my mom before the state stepped in and took me.
Wow.
Okay, so when people are saying pro-life, they want you to keep the baby. Who are they thinking about? And I'm going to, this really, okay, now I'm going to go even a different place. It is the same group of people who scream pro-life and are marching are the same group of people, okay?
I'm listening.
That here in Puyallup and around the world told Native Americans, you don't need to be living in these teepees in generations. And they took them out of the teepees and they put them in those houses that they built over in Salishan, the old ones and some other ones. And then they split the family up. They said no more generations, so the grandparents had to go to their house, and the parents had to go to their house, and then they put the children in the boarding school.
So just screw your culture.
Just totally. And when I
that sounds familiar.
A diversity class, I went out to the tribe so that I could learn, because I took Native Americans. And they said their tribe, all of the culture of their tribe, their religion, their everything was lost because these kids were forced into boarding schools. They couldn't use their own names, and they couldn't speak their own languages, and they were abused because they were told, we can take better care of your kids than you can.
Right.
And when those kids were 18 years old and they were sent back home, first of all, there were no more teepees. Where are their parents? Who are their parents? They can't even speak their own native language.
What they had known their whole life until that point had changed.
Everything. And then after that, they started taking them even as infants.
Nobody cared what happened to them.
No.
Let's just be honest.
It's not about the baby.
No, it's not. A lot of the times, it is just about opinion. How people feel and how butthurt they get when something that they see going on that they don't agree with.
And oh my goodness, they do this under the name of God.
Correct.
I'm sorry.
It's really sad to me how we use the Father in certain ways to dictate and benefit us when our feelings are hurt or when we don't agree.
Yes. And we take portions of the Bible.
Correct.
And we pull out the one phrases we want
that pertain to the issue.
Phrases,
right.
To put them all together to say, see, the Bible says this. That's just like somebody coming in on a portion of someone's conversation.
And only hearing a piece of it.
And
right.
Then making their decision.
Correct. Now, Jennifer, I think this goes right back to the beginning of the show when you were talking about no sin is greater.
That's right.
We know the Father has forgiven murderers. We know that.
And you know what else? I've stood in front of groups and told them, I want you to think about this. When God says there's no sin greater or less than another sin except blasphemy of the Holy Spirit, that means that a child molester, rapist, is even forgiven by the Father.
That's right.
It doesn't matter what we think about it personally. They are still forgiven by the Father. See, we as humans have decided what we feel is right or wrong.
Right.
And we say it based on the Bible, but we're not looking at Jesus, and we're not looking at grace, and we're not looking at love, and we're not looking at any of those that represents Jesus, because it was Jesus that came to give us life.
Correct.
The one that came to give us grace. He's given those mothers grace. He's given those mothers love. And as a matter of fact, if you're not giving those mothers love and not hate and not loving them, then you're actually not walking with Christ, because
you're right. You are not of the Father.
Out of all the things, the sins, he said, of all of these and all of the great things, he said the greatest of these is love.
Yes. So with that being said, and everyone knows I have used the term the softening of the heart many, many times. When is the love going to start fulfilling all of our hearts again, where we can soften them up a little bit and not be so hard all the time, and not be so hard on what we disagree with, but maybe open up our minds a little bit and try to have a little bit more understanding? That's all I'm saying this morning.
I'm saying a lot more understanding. And actually, I started thinking about something the other day, Tasha. Because this conversation has been coming up, and the progressives were really saying, she's pro-life, she's pro-life. Personally, I do not like abortion. That's my personal opinion, and I can have them.
Right.
However, I have taken women to Planned Parenthood. I have been there because I've talked to them. And I know it is not my decision, and it's not lawmakers' decision.
Exactly. That blood's not on my hands.
Yes.
That's not my choice.
Yes. That's the only person who has the right to make that decision is the person whose womb that child is coming out of.
Right. And all I'm saying this morning, if you're going to stand up and protest and march and hoo and ha and rip and roar, you know what I'm saying? Stand up all the way.
And be there.
And be there. Right. Stand up all the way. Really ask yourself, are you pro-choice or pro-life this morning?
No. Are you pro-life or are you pro-birth?
There you go. There you go. That breaks it down right there.
Are you pro-life or are you pro-birth? Because I think there's a lot more people that are pro-life according to my definition of pro-life.
I agree.
And they need to realize that what they're saying that they want is really pro-birth.
Right. Because they do not care what happens to that child as long as it enters the earth.
And I don't think a lot of people think about it that way.
They don't. They don't. That's why we were asking them. That's why this topic was a strong one for us, that we can both just nail it down, because, like you said, ask yourself, are you pro-birth or are you really pro-life? Because let me tell you, I care about these children that have no families, that have nothing. I care about the homeless teenagers that are just, I can't even tell you how many there are anymore, Gigi. There's not even any statistics to tell us, to give us even a guesstimation of how many homeless children that we have just in Washington State alone.
And part of and even when they do the statistics, it's like it's a one-night sweep because they're constantly roaming.
Right.
So they have all of these people out there, and they do this one-night sweep that they do the county. And those numbers are high enough, but what about the kid that was able to get into sleep on a friend's sofa
The couch
or
surf or whatever, right?
their basement or hide out that did not get counted?
Right, but even the ones that they did the sweep on, what's the point of the sweep? When they're just going to get released in a couple days or a day or so and not be put into any programs because there's no funding available.
And you know what? That is a conversation I'm having with people on my show, Gigi for Senate, on Sunday evenings at 8 o'clock, because there are people stepping up to the plate and making donations, and they are building greenhouses and green cities right here in Washington State. And these people do not have to move, and they are building communities. And some of it is because these people have started doing this, because they're building them as green, there is grant money coming, there's donation money coming. And so people really need to think about where they stand on a whole lot of issues, and they need to put their fist to the fire to this man in Washington, D.C. for what he is even doing with our youth and with people. And is he showing love? And these kids are being traumatized.
I could not imagine being a child and being separated from my parents. And then what about the ones, Jennifer, that walked hundreds of thousands of miles, or thousands of miles, that their parents just sent with strangers, trying to get them to a better life?
And they went to the border. That was what I talked about last week. They went to the border. The law says they're supposed to go to the border, and then they can get asylum. These people are showing up at the border. They're doing what they were supposed to do. They're showing up at the border.
Right.
And they're still being separated. And so you make a woman have a baby. She doesn't love the baby because you have an issue with it. So then we end up where? Back the reason they had Roe versus Wade.
Right.
Women end up having abortions in dark alleys and unsanitized places, which kills them and the baby. Is that what they want?
Right.
And girl, there's so many directions this can go into.
Yes, and we might have to revisit this again, you guys, but that is our time. Jennifer, thank you for dialing in this morning. Listeners, thank you. Street Talk Radio Show, Natasha, Nicole, Jennifer, Congresswoman Gigi Ferguson.
I am going to be Washington State's next U.S. Senator.
There you go. Talk to you next week, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.